Hello, and welcome to AI in Action. We are doing episode 19 today. And my name is Maurie, and I'm here with my husband, Jim. And we're going to talk just a little bit about what we just experienced this last week. We actually traveled to Houston, Texas. The trip down was kind of, a little nerve wracking because, it always rains in Houston. And
Didn't bother me.
That's because I was the one driving.
I
Have you
slept.
ever noticed that when you're driving after dark in Houston and it's raining, you cannot see the stripes on the interstate?
Somebody needs to introduce them to reflective paint.
Reflective paint would be a really good thing because it was very nerve wracking, especially coming from a small town. I'm not used to interstate driving like I used to be when we lived in Austin or when we lived in Florida. But
I know you kept waking me up.
I'm so sorry about that. Anyway, we actually were key speakers at a science conference, CAST23 or StatCast 23. It
This
was really fun.
the Science Teachers Association of Texas.
Right.
That was
Science
STAT.
Teachers Association of Texas,
It was. We gave
2023.
two presentations, which we enjoyed doing.
Got there. It was 8 o'clock in the morning. Was the first presentation that
9
we
o'clock
gave,
on Friday.
and we
8
gave
o'clock on
the
Friday.
8 o'clock on Friday, and we gave the AI Kickstarter from novice to expert-ish because you're never truly an expert on AI because things change so quickly. Which we're going to talk about some big changes toward the end of the podcast
I
today.
really wasn't expecting that many people at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I wasn't either. I
It
was pleasantly
packed.
surprised.
There's probably 200 people in that room.
It was a very large room. It was, it was the big, huge round tables like you do in like hotel conferences. A lot of people really, really enjoyed the presentation, enjoyed the feedback that we got from people. It's one of those things that you and I talk about a lot. We do these presentations. And the very first time we did one, we were asked to go to a service center. And we just went and talked about AI. And there was a teacher in there that was like an aha moment. It was that the light came on and she was just so thrilled about something that we had told her about, something she could go back and do immediately in her classroom to save time.
I call them the Eureka moments.
I call them aha moments.
And we had one in the big room.
Every single time we give a presentation, we have somebody or more than one person who has those types of epiphanies.
Yep.
And it just kind of keeps us going. Really enjoy it.
And then we really didn't think there'd be anybody there for the next one because, again, 8 o'clock in the morning, except this was on Saturday and the conference was over by lunch. We figured everybody was going to be leaving. We figured there were going to be like 5 people in the room. The room probably would hold 60 people, and it was at least 50 in there. So it was very crowded.
A lot of them who had attended the day before.
I saw some very familiar faces.
Mm-hmm. Lots of afterwards they stayed and asked a lot of questions and things like that.
We got thrown out of the room.
We did. And it wasn't us that was talking, it was them that were talking. So it was really great. But we really enjoyed the conference. And what I want to do right now is I want to take a moment to recognize the organizers of that conference.
You could appreciate, you're an organizer and you've done conference stuff before.
It was one of the most organized conferences I've ever been at.
And that was a massive building, and they had it so well laid out. Everything was structured where you could find everything easily.
It was sold out. It was at the big convention center in downtown Houston. They were taking no more registrations.
In that building. It was like the Smithsonian.
The people who organized it, that the signage was awesome. The registration process, like when we got there. Now, normally when we go speak at conferences, they take care of us, right? These people did an extra special job. Oh. The hotel was ready. Our badges were ready. They greeted us when we got there. They took that little extra and they made us feel special.
Well, first of all, I'm going to disagree with you about the taking care of from other conference. We've been speakers at a lot of conferences, and generally the ones that we speak at, they want you to pay to get in. The teachers are giving their own expertise, their own time, and they still want you to pay to get in.
Or if you don't pay to get in, if they say, we want you to come really bad, we'll let you show up at the conference. You don't have to pay your registration. They don't offer to cover your hotel costs. They don't offer to do any of that stuff. And you can only do your conference.
Oh, yeah.
You can't go and listen in on anybody else's.
You can't even go.
You pay.
You can't go to the exhibit hall. You can't. These guys didn't do any of that. The exhibit hall was open to us. We could go into any session we want.
Yes.
They picked up the hotel. This was a class act.
It was.
I was very impressed.
It was really
kudos to the people that had organized that.
Definitely willing to go back in 2024 and share more AI knowledge.
If they invite us, we'll come back.
Absolutely. The other thing is that we were interviewed. They have a thing called StatCast, which is it's Stat Studio. It's called Stat Studio as part of StatCast.
I think they said they'll post it in a few days, right?
Yeah. And so they interviewed us. It was really cool. It was one of those things that was like, ooh, Good Morning America kind of set. Made me feel like I, needed a little extra makeup on, had to put a little extra lipstick on because the lights were bright, and had to have 2 mics on, which was, it's always kind of weird when somebody mics you up. It reminds me of when I taught kindergarten, when like little kids came up and put their hands on your tummy and all this stuff. And was like, okay. So anyway, it was fun.
I wanted to say that it kind of rejuvenated my desire to help teachers. You get kind of cynical. I've been doing this a long time, for 18 years, almost 19 years. And you start thinking, people just don't care that much about some of this stuff. They don't feel, it doesn't feel like they're passionate. These were passionate people. I mean, every industry, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about teachers or you're talking about people doing sales. It doesn't really matter. Some people are just passionate.
Yes.
And some people aren't. And I get that. But these people were passionate about learning and teaching. The people that are trying to undo public education so hard, they should be ashamed of themselves. They should go to this thing and watch those kids. Those teachers are like kids in a candy store in that exhibit hall.
There were butterflies. There were things that were exploding. There was chemical reactions. The exhibit hall was full of just all sorts of just fun activities that they were doing.
And when they were in our sessions, they were polite. They asked tons of questions. They were excited. And we typically have a very good audience. It's very respectful. Like you said, we have the eureka moments. But these people were really involved. I mean, they weren't. When you were doing that one piece you did where you did the translation, that was cool. And they were all videoing it with their phones. And tell them about that.
Yes, we'll tell them about that. So there is a company called NewGen, Ney.
Is it NewGen or HeyGen?
HeyGen, HeyGen. HeyGen.
That's right.
I tried the free version. Now the one that you have to pay for is a little bit expensive, but I only had to wait. I was like number 10,000 in line. Basically, what I did.
Which sounds like a lot, but
I started it rendering the night before, went to bed, got up, and I had an email saying it was ready.
You get 10 minutes a week.
I think they do theirs by credits.
I thought it was 10 minutes a week, because remember I did, didn't that? That's not the one I did the science ones on? That's the other one? Okay.
That was in video. That gives you the 10 minutes a week. This one, you get like a number of credits.
Right.
So I videoed myself using just my webcam, an MP4, really short video saying that I was given like an assignment in Google Classroom for 10 extra points, yada, yada, yada. And then I took that video and I said, please do it. I just clicked it, drug it over, said to translate it into Spanish. The next morning when I got the email, I clicked on it, blew my mind.
Blew everybody's mind.
It blew everyone's mind because when we put it in our presentation, I could not believe it was me, but I was talking in Spanish. I'm not saying that my mouth was moving with English words coming out of my mouth that were then translated into Spanish audio. My mouth was actually forming the Spanish words. My lips were moving differently.
People commented on it. They said, your lips looked right.
Yes.
And remember when you sent it to our Spanish teacher, what did she say?
Oh my God.
And the lady in our audience that was a native Spanish speaker, what did she say?
It
said
the Spanish was very good Spanish. Yes, I do not speak Spanish.
There was probably 20 people standing in front of that screen with their phones out, videoing you.
Blew their mind. So it does a lot more than just Spanish. It'll do like lots of different languages. I think the next one I'm going to try like in Chinese. Mandarin or something.
It's got to be Chinese.
Just to see what my mouth looks like. And it's AI. It's AI generated.
Of course.
AI took the video, changed my mouth. You cannot tell that it's not
like your
my
mouth. You've seen those ones where it's almost
yes,
because the mouth looks like somebody else's mouth.
Different skin tone, different teeth, all that.
Not like that.
Not like that at all.
You even commented you could see your tongue as you were talking.
My tongue was making
crazy.
Different.
It was kind of creepy.
It was very creepy, but
it was cool.
It's scary.
Well, the deep fake thing is the first thing people started asking us about is, would this looks like it'd be good for a deep fake? Probably.
Yeah.
But if you're like a YouTuber and you want to hit these other markets and you can't speak the language, think about what that is for the guys that do YouTube trainings.
If you're an educator,
I know, but they got to bring the price down for educators a little bit.
I think that they'll do something for educational, like if you have
I hope
an
so.
education email or something.
If one of the people who knows that company is listening, I really hope that they bring the price. Educators need that
because
tool.
what you can do for accommodations and for all the different language learners that we're trying to educate. So
it is amazing.
Anyway, let's talk about news. We're about 10 minutes in now, so we want to talk about what everyone in AI seems to be talking about right now, and that's a new release from OpenAI.
Well, first of all, they had their OpenAI, their first. They called it Dev Day. I would have called it DevCon, like Dev Conference.
Mm-hmm.
It's also unusual to have a one-day one. That was kind of surprising. It was November 6th. It was in San Francisco. And
wish we could have gone.
Oh, we used to go to those every year. The Macworld conferences.
We have day jobs.
I know. But that was cool. We used to go to the Macworlds out there, the big event center out there, remember? That was fun.
So if you pay for ChatGPT, then I'm sure you have noticed the massive changes in the user interface. Now, it broke it.
Well, I thought it was their changes that broke it, but it turns out they were getting hit by a distributed denial of service attack. Which brought down a lot of stuff. Apparently some Russian hacker group was mad at them. They claimed it was about Israel or something, but you never know. They were just mad about something. But anyway, apparently they got hit with a pretty massive attack. So it might not have been their change. I think their changes were part of it because there was a lot of changes.
Like the perfect storm.
And so what is everybody declaring?
The end of all the lightweight front ends is what they're saying.
Yeah.
So
the people that make stuff that you and I talk about it all the time. They make a front end like chat with your PDFs kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the back end is OpenAI, which I read a stat. OpenAI for these kind of things, OpenAI owns like 72% of those type of products. But the problem is when you do those kind of things, you're also taking a big risk because they can come in and they can stomp on you. So let's talk about the Dev Day. So let's pull up our first thing here. What did they do on the first? Well, with the big announcement.
Custom versions of ChatGPT that you can create for a specific purpose. They're calling them GPTs. They're so original.
Developer types, they don't do a great job with naming things, apparently.
So basically they're saying that you can create your tailored version.
So what do you see? List some of the ones.
Creative writing coach, a tech advisor, a laundry buddy.
So if you go to ChatGPT and you go to the left over here and you hit explore, if you've got it'll list all the GPTs that they've already put up. We were playing with this one a minute ago. What's Sous Chef?
There is a custom GPT that's called Sous Chef that, I'll give you recipes based on the foods you love and ingredients you have. I used data analysis earlier today.
You did?
I dropped a file into the new one that's called data analysis and asked it to take a table and put it into a CSV so that we could then ingest it into Agnes. So it's...
Well, the thing is, first we thought that the whole direction they were going to go with this was the plugins. And when they first came out with this, my plugins had disappeared, and I used the Wolfram Alpha plugin, and I was like, oh. But the plugins came back, so that may have been the denial of service attack thing. But this feels like they're going to do, instead of plugins, you're going to be doing GPTs. And there's already a bunch of people that are doing it. I'm going to talk about that a little bit in a second. But I think it's a great idea. So what else do we got in the news? Not only do we have GPTs, well, as I was saying a second ago, if you're getting squashed by these things, by OpenAI, because you're doing your own little lightweight thing, well, you're probably going to have to add more value. We talk about that all the time with Agnes. If Agnes was nothing other than a wrapper for all the stuff that's already available, then we're going to get squashed eventually.
Right. If Agnes just had like the Texas Teaks and had the Title 37 discipline code in it, things that are readily available on the web
with a nice little button,
then that's not in depth enough.
You're not really showing that domain knowledge that you should have if you're really going to do this. Because as many people have found out with Apple or with the big companies, where does the 800-pound gorilla sit?
Anywhere he wants
to. And they decide they're going to get in there, they're just going to sit on you and squash you.
So what's Apple doing?
Well, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We got some other big announcements before we talk about that a little bit. So, what else do we have for announcements this week? Um, we have there's the Dev Day. So here's some of the other stuff that we were talking about. What's the first one? GPT-4 Turbo model. This is really good news because they're saying it's going to be cheaper. And right now, GPT-4 is kind of pricey. I mean, GPT 3.5, which is what we're using with Agnes, the tokens are pretty cheap, but 4, if you want to use it, it's a little high. So they're going down. They say it's like a 2 or 3x decrease.
Okay. But and a larger content window?
The content window is the most exciting thing. I mean, we're talking about jumping from 16,000 tokens, 28,000 tokens, or 32,000 tokens, I think, up to 128,000. That's a big jump.
Yeah, it is.
You're talking about
a lot more data.
75,000 words, 200 or 300 pages of text potentially that it can ingest. The interesting thing to me is, though, as many people have said, when you start ingesting that much at once, it tends to only do well with the beginning and the end. So I'm interested to see how they fix that. Like if you've got 100 pages of stuff you're putting in,
it pays attention to the first 2 and then goes to the end and pays attention to the last 2.
People say it loses the middle.
It's like reading a book. You read the beginning, you read the end.
Exactly.
You don't necessarily remember what happens in the middle.
That seems like that. So we'll see. Okay. They also have the new Assistance API. I haven't played with this one yet, but I'm really planning to because it supposedly helps you make the kind of assistance like we have when we're building Agnes. Now, I don't want to make Agnes completely dependent on ChatGPT or OpenAI's API.
Right.
And so when I do it, I'm looking at, we use LangChain, which is something, maybe some people know about, some people don't, but it's a good way of kind of abstracting away which one of the language models you're using. So you can then use Claude or you can use, whatever you want. So we're kind of trying to do that. But this Assistant API thing is very interesting. But the big one for me also, we've been playing around with this for a while, the multimodal capability, the vision stuff we've been doing, yes. It wasn't in the API.
Image creation, Dolly.
Yeah, that wasn't in the API. That was only available for ChatGPT, but now it's in the API. So technically, we could give Agnes vision capabilities.
That would be really
cool. Or the capability to generate images.
I like the text-to-speech also.
The text-to-speech we need.
Yes.
We need speech-to-text. I mean, they already have the speech-to-text, which is Whisper. It'd be nice if they'd kind of, and it's kind of, I guess it's already in the API because it's Whisper. But the text-to-speech, that's a nice addition. I really want Agnes to talk to me.
Absolutely.
I feel lonely when I'm using it.
I am sitting 6 feet away from you.
You are sitting 6 feet.
All day long.
You are. I know. But you don't want to talk about AI stuff all the time, right? I mean, so anyway, the other big announcement that we wanted to talk about, which you mentioned a second ago, was the Apple Store. They are talking about doing a revenue sharing thing, just like Apple does. And again, we talked about this too. I hope they're successful. The question is what's Apple going to do?
It's Apple.
Because Apple already has a store.
It's one of those things where we kept waiting.
The 800-pound gorilla thing again.
What is Apple going to do? What is Apple going to do?
And now I'm hearing
it's in the processor. It's been in the processor.
The neural support's been in the processor since M1.
Mm-hmm.
And now they just released M3. So they've already been building that foundation. They hadn't paid a lot of attention to generative AI, but it's supposedly now they're on target to spend $1 billion, which $1 billion for Apple's like dropping a $20 bill for most people. So,
but I mean, let's think back to how many times did they say AI in the large conference that Apple did?
The first time they said it was 0.
Right.
They said it twice in the last one.
Really?
They just did another 2 times. They said it. So they are saying it now. They've admitted they're doing it. The interesting thing is that you can already get an AI app. This is where I'm curious about it. You can, like ChatGPT is already in the Apple Store. So the argument is what would Apple need to do differently? Well, what they can do and what I think they're going to do is they're going to start allowing the concept of an agent. So they're going to have their own language model in the back end.
Like an app, but it's an agent.
Yeah, and think about it. Right now, like the reason ChatGPT can do what it does is because it's a native app, because you can't get access to the phone, the camera, and all the other features through a web app, but you can through a native app.
Correct.
And all the sensors that are built in. So think about Apple with a large language model sitting on somebody's server. They'll probably host it. I doubt they'll do it themselves. So they've got these big servers running that Apple's using, like an Amazon server. And then they have these apps that can utilize the phone thing with the AI. Siri gets to be ridiculously good, but think about what else they can do with that. And they already have a store. So I hope OpenAI can do this, because I think Apple needs competition. But boy, I'll tell you,
once Apple says, "Okay, we're in."
Yeah. You're also this store thing, this concept. You're going to see it pretty soon from Anthropic. Anybody out there? I think Google and Amazon have both invested several billion in Anthropic, and now Google just invested several billion in character AI, which is interesting. It's kind of like remember I always talk about the one where you can. It's like Poe, where you can generate your own characters. I don't know where Apple's play is on that one, but I played
Apple. Apple has a lot to do with entertainment.
Yeah, but Apple didn't do it. It was Google that did it. Did I say Apple? I meant
Google.
Said
Apple.
Okay. Google invested in them.
Okay.
So Apple's doing their own thing. They're being Apple. They don't care about anybody else. But so Apple's doing their own thing, but Google is now invested in character AI, which I really don't understand where they're going with that.
Okay, anyway, so Poe, tell me what Poe is real quick.
Well, basically, you create custom characters. Like it's a persona. You build it a persona.
My favorite one is the one that is sarcastic.
Yeah, I think that's Poe.
It is Poe. It is
Poe. Character AI probably has that too.
Take be sarcastic to me, and then every question you ask it comes back with some sarcastic response.
I have that problem with them anyway sometimes, because I'm a little rude to them.
But think about the entertainment value. Okay. Kids are going to love it.
And that, by the way, it's funny you mentioned that, because what I read is that character AI is popular with 18 to 24-year-olds.
Kids, young adults.
They can have their own personas.
All their gaming conversations, everything that they're doing.
It can do
online.
Any kind of persona. It can do that, like you said, the sarcasm and all that other stuff.
Yes.
So along the phone, since we're talking about phones, I got Samsung. They made an announcement about, they called it the morning after. Samsung's made its own generative AI model, which I thought was kind of interesting. Did you open that one?
Yes.
What's interesting about that one is that everybody's referring back to Bixby. Bixby, apparently, I didn't use Bixby, but it was their virtual assistant they did. They threw a bunch of money in it. It was a complete bust. Everybody hated it. But they're talking about running these language models, like 3 different models. Remember, I always talk about running the smaller models on reduced hardware, but it's very specialized for certain functions. Well, they've got like 3 language models they're talking about putting on their phone that runs native on the phone. So It doesn't even have to be web connected for it to have capabilities. Sounds like an interesting concept. Of course, it could fall flat on its face if it's a piece of junk, which I think Bixby probably was.
Yeah.
But I've heard they're going to release that in 2024. They've just got to do a better job than they did with Bixby.
Okay.
So anyway, what else do we got?
Well, we have introducing OpenAI data.
I had to make fun of this one. That's why I did this one. I had to make fun of this one.
Jim, make fun of something?
No,
never.
OpenAI is going to have partnerships, data partnerships, and they say in there they're going to work with companies to create public and private data sets. Well, if you've heard us talk about AI, AI is very, very dependent on data sets. You got to have data, lots of it. Well, as soon as OpenAI they've figured out lately all their data sets have gotten behind paywalls. They went out and they did all of what they did
without anyone knowing
without anybody knowing they were doing it, and they got a great product from it. But now they're going out and going, well, we want to partner with you guys to create these public and private data sets. Well, nobody believes them, is my guess.
So who bought GitHub?
Microsoft.
Okay.
So Microsoft, of course, and guess what? Visual Studio, which is a Microsoft product, free and a paid-for version, they integrate very well with GitHub. Big surprise. And Microsoft got a lot of crap for the fact that they bought GitHub, everybody thought they were just going to ruin it. What surprised everybody is it did nothing.
They did nothing to it.
But what then everybody found out later is they were using all that data to train their AI with, and so a lot of people got angry.
And they owned it, therefore they were allowed to do it.
Pretty much. Well, OpenAI did a whole bunch of training on a lot of stuff. And they said, but, we're OpenAI. We're going to keep everything open. Everybody's going to see what we're doing. Until, of course, it became big. And then suddenly it's not open anymore. Now, what they said was, of course, is that we're not making our model available for everyone's protection. We're going to protect you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sure everybody bought that line, right? So now all of a sudden they've got these free. Well, they haven't had a lot of takers so far. The Icelandic government, which has lots of information available for free anyway, and then the Free Law Project. But I don't see a long list of people lining up
There's
to help
three.
them.
One that is a completely foreign language,
I think
probably Russian.
No, I think that's Icelandic.
Is it Icelandic?
I think that's part of the Iceland thing. I think that's their native text.
Oh, that's what it is. So it's those two are going to improve GPT-4's ability to speak Icelandic.
Right. So great, good for them. And then the Free Law Project is, of course, these are probably things that are free already, which is legal documents because they have to be, so people can find them. But are people really going to believe them when they say we're going to keep it open? After the, I don't think people are going to buy that. So anyway, we'll see. That's just me being sarcastic, though. So
it's a prediction.
I suspect people are going to have a little trust issue with them. So overall, it was a pretty good week, other than the terrible weather. We really did enjoy that conference. I can't say enough about how much I enjoyed that. I really, really liked. We didn't see a lot of AI with the exhibitors, though, which surprised me. I figured we're going to see exhibitors that were talking about their AI capabilities in their products.
Yeah.
But I don't think I saw any of it. Did you? I didn't see any there. I saw some great science experiments, though.
A lot of science experiments. And a couple of really funny T-shirts. And,
another thing that went over well was that in video, which you mentioned earlier, we generated I put a single line prompt in there that said, I need a 2-minute or less video that talks about AI and how it affects science. And it did a little 2-minute video with a voice overlay. Now it still puts the watermarks.
That's because you use the free version.
That's the one that's the 10-minute one. You get 10 minutes a week.
In video is what it's called.
That one was 10 minutes a week. We generated one on the water cycle, which you didn't get a chance to show.
Peloponnesian War.
I've got to have the Peloponnesian War because you're obsessed with it.
Yes.
And it was funny, though, I loved your example that you gave everybody. You said, you look at the video, and a fun thing that they can do if they use this tool, we recommend it. Have the kids try to spot errors in the video. Remember that one error you pointed out?
We were doing the water cycle, and it showed
the Peloponnesian War. Your
the Peloponnesian War, and it showed like a really brief image of like a statue.
It was a Buddha statue.
A Buddha, and I was
Buddha, not Buddha. It was Buddha.
I said Buddha.
Oh,
and I was like, what does that have to do with the Peloponnesian War? But then I originally was thinking, immediately I started thinking, wow, a student would really like the challenge of trying to find things that might be wrong.
Well, it's like that game,
in the video.
Like the game you used to play, Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, or Where's Waldo, or whatever, where you're trying to find something buried in an image. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of teachers nodding their head that one of them even said he had tried that with some of the stuff he was doing, kind of generating fun games like that. Mm-hmm. But you could do it with the video stuff, and that'd be a lot of fun. And our Spanish teacher mentioned that she could create the Spanish lessons and then have the kids tell her the dialect. Because she's as you said, she's a linguist. She's not just a Spanish teacher. She apparently knows all the different dialects of Spanish throughout Central America, South America. So it'd be a great quiz thing, like a bonus thing.
Right.
I'm going to show you this and you tell me the dialect. I didn't even know. I guess I never really thought about that. But I thought that was a really cool idea too. Anyway, we're running out of time.
Really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for listening. That's all the time we have for this podcast.
In video. Hey Jen. Which are very good ones.
Also did just a little bit with 11 Labs.
Oh, that's right.
On just a voice translation.
That's right. 11 Labs.
It was kind of weird though.
Yeah, it had that guy's voice.
It had a guy's voice at the beginning saying, hola. And at the very end saying, gracias.
It was kind of your voice, though.
And my voice was in the middle.
Yeah, and
it was like it put an intro and an exit. Maybe I could go in and tell it not to do that. So anyway, that's all the time we have for today. We hope that you guys have a marvelous rest of the week. And thank you very, very much for listening to AI in Action. I am Maurie.
I'm Jim.